Welcome to another episode of the Antifragility Reframe podcast, where struggles become strength and stress fuels growth. I'm Dr. Frank L. Douglas, your host, and my guest today is Mr. Edward E. Tyson. He's the CEO of Persynergy Consulting. He's the creator of the SOPs leadership framework, and he's also the author of From Expert to Executives. Mr. Tyson, welcome.
Thank you, Doctor. Glad to be here.
As I commented earlier, you do have a knack for words. I know that you are an expert in precision approaches, and I know you've brought some of that to the consulting work that you do.
Indeed.
And I like the framework and also the title of your book, From Expert to Executives. So tell us a bit of your journey. What led you to the consulting world, from the world of precision and tool making?
Yes, sure. Well, I started my journey, as I am apt to say, at 17 after begging my mommy to sign my enlistment papers for the Marine Corps because I was too young to sign them myself. And shortly after turning 18 and before even technically graduating from high school, I left for Marine Corps boot camp. I was a good enough student, I suppose, to qualify for an early graduation. So they let me take those finals early and get on my journey. And that really started, even though I only spent 6 years in the Marine Corps, that started what's now been a 30 plus year journey through military, nonprofit, for profit, publicly traded organizations, seeing them both as an insider for a time. I spent 16 plus years in healthcare in a number of large publicly traded private organizations, driving process improvement and strategy development, and then converted that into the consulting you were talking about earlier, and really started focusing on working for a broad breadth of clients across lots of different industries like big tech, biotech, fintech, automotive, utilities, you name it, a lot of variation, and starting to kind of note and reframe, to borrow some of the words you use yourself, uh, organizational pivot points and use them for positive transformation.
No, I do like that, particularly that you talk about pivot points. And pivoting occurs not only in individuals, where sometimes we are actually faced with challenges, but in organizations. And the pivot points in organizations are sometimes difficult for the leaders to see. And it also calls for courage when they're at that point. So tell me, how do your ABCs, your SOPs, you've crossed out ABCs, SOPs. Tell us a little bit about that. I like these stories when you play with words. So
Oh,
tell
sure.
us a little bit about.
So, I was remarking when we were getting to know each other about the fact that the SOPs of leading, it has an S on it, not just because it's standard operating procedures, but I also use that SOPs a second time as an additional acronym and mnemonic to stand for the three areas of leading that I focus on, whether I'm talking to an individual leader or we have a broad organizational focus, and that's structuring, operating, and perfecting communities of effort. You see, speaking of pivot points and personal ones, when I first developed leadership SOPs, I really literally only meant standard operating procedures. And I thought I was done. I thought, wow, that sounds like something that's brandable. I should start saying that more. And indeed, I did. And I went off and created a logo and started talking to my executive coaching clients about that. And almost instantly, it unlocked some things for them, thinking about their leadership as a process. But also, almost instantly, the question back was, what SOPs should I develop?
Mhm.
And for a long time, I just kept saying back, well, that's not my job is not to tell you which SOPs. It's to say which ones do you have now and what feedback are we hearing and how can I help you develop ones that are more effective in your culture, et cetera. I can't just give you a best practice, right? And so once I started saying this once and then twice to another person, I realized at some point you have to look in the mirror, right? And I said, okay, I'm not giving enough here with just talking about leadership SOPs. I need to help people, even if I'm not prepared to give them five best practices or seven, if I'm Stephen Covey, or however many, 50. If I'm hesitant to do that, I need to tell them what to aim at. What they need to develop SOPs to do effectively. What's the work of leading? So I started talking about treat it like a process. But the thing I wasn't doing is letting them know what to aim that process at other than this obscure term, leadership, that we all anchor in our heads and our guts differently, don't we? And so that's what led me to then create this framework where I first break leadership down into three different domains: structuring, operating, and perfecting communities of effort, but then continue to break that down into 16 more dimensions. So when I talk about the SOPs of leading, I'm both talking about this behavior, this rigor, this discipline of translating your aspiration into perspiration. What's the process you're going to use not once, but twice, three times, four times? If you were a coach, you'd call it a play, but you're a leader, so it's an SOP. And then secondly, what types of SOPs should you develop? And those are the ones that help you structure everything from strategy all the way to structure, engage or operate, and lastly, perfect, whether it's yourself, the individuals, the teams, or the enterprise. What does that change mechanism look like? So those are the three areas that I encourage leaders to develop SOPs. And when I'm talking about the SOPs of leading, I'm talking about both of those things,
Mhm.
both the
And
process
that was structuring, operating. What was the third?
perfecting.
Perfecting. As we think about anti-fragile reframing, one of the elements we talk about is perspective shifting, shifting perspectives. And you clearly, in responding to what you were hearing from your clients and then what you were hearing from yourself, as as you looked at yourself in the mirror, hearing their words, that caused you to shift perspective. Now, tell me, now you've shifted perspective, you've broadened actually the concept. What and in what ways uh, has that helped your clients to become stronger and to get better when they're faced with stress or when, as we were talking earlier, they're facing a pivot point?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I learned in the Marine Corps was the power of an immediate action drill. Frequently, you'll see on the news, a news story will be that some crisis has happened. Shots have been fired in a crowd of people. A horrible accident transpires. And somewhere there is a story today unfolding where a Marine is running toward that activity, not away from it, whether it's a fire, an accident, or an active shooter situation. And that's not by mistake. That's because of something that we called immediate action drills. And we must have tested that run towards the fire drill 4 million times before I was at a boot camp. I mean, it literally is one of the most frequent drills as soon as you start really playing war games, so to speak, and doing that kind of work rather than just marching. Um, we began practicing that. And I think that relates to your question. It relates to the leadership SOPs because when we talk about how we want to be, whether we're under stress or we're not in stress, it requires creating disciplined action. If we want to be ad hoc, chaotic, driven by the moment, we should have no process. We should have no pattern. We should have no intentional habits. We should have only the ones that just occur because, like Walden Pond, we've taken the same route to the pond. But if we do want to be intentional, if we do want to have courage under fire and run towards danger or run towards the issues that need our attention, we need to develop that process and work it and take it rep by rep, building that muscle personally, but also what that does, it's why coaches create and run plays, right? Is because it's not just about the coach becoming more proficient in when to call that play, when to call that SOP. It's about the team experiencing who you are, experiencing who they are, and what their team members look like when they're executing a play, what they look like when they're about to get it wrong, what they look like when they're getting it right, how you need to adjust when either of those two things are happening. And all of this creates resiliency in the system. It also is the foundation because I know what everybody's thinking and what likely you're even thinking right now as you hear this is, yeah, but we can't be robots and the world is way too filled with dynamic input that means we can't do it the same way every time. But once it's so much easier if we are all changing from plan A to plan A and a half or plan B. And if we've never even practiced plan A, then it's really hard to describe the behavior you want. But it's really easy if we can say it looks like plan A, it feels like plan A, except in these critical ways. And so you have this ability to adapt and do what, I refer to as complex collaboration. So you get that simple collaboration in a simple play you're calling over and over again, whether that's how you coach, or it's how you plan annually, how you adapt the plan when strange things happen in the middle of a budget cycle. Whatever the case is, if you have an SOP for it, having it creates not just your own personal proficiency, but it grows team trust and lays the foundations through simple collaboration for complex. So that's a big answer, but
Well,
that's how I look at it.
well, I tell you, I hear a number of things for solving things in an anti-fragile way, and one of the ones that I heard and I like is you run towards the problem, and often we deal with the symptoms and we don't deal with the root cause. But if you run towards the problem, you are running towards trying to find the root cause. When you're on the periphery playing around, you're dealing with the symptoms.
Yeah.
So I hear that. I also hear that you practice the simple steps because that enables you to do the complex. In closing, what's one bit of advice you would leave with the audience?
That leadership is a process. The best way to improve it is actions, not academics. So define what you're doing and why, do it, evaluate it, and then modify it based on the data you've got and keep it going. Get into action immediately.
And you being a process expert, I almost hear the continuous improvement. So go in there.
Structure, operate, and then
Yeah,
perfect. It works on an individual creating an actual SOP as
yeah,
well, not just what you need to
yeah.
do when you've created one. But you structure the SOP, you operate it, and then you perfect it.
Yes.
Just like you need to do that for your whole community of effort. You need to figure out the strategy and the structure. You need to engage it as it's been designed or operate it, and continuously
Okay, improve.
perfect all the humans in the system.
Yeah. Mr. Tyson, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.